Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry. Yes, Rowley has gone mad. And nothing, of course, unexpected. Nothing that we did not predict. And so, of course, the manifestation, of course, is in his, of course, adopted what I consider to be secondary approach to, of course, primary disrespect, intolerance of the population, and his as the greatest bane and the anathema to the country, the most hated, the most wicked, the most dangerous, and the most susceptible now to a madman rant. Madman rant. That is what Rowley is now engaged in. Yes, indeed. Let's hear the madman rant. Yes, indeed, a madman rant. No doubt, no doubt. The man is now insane, total and absolute. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Total. In a madman fit, a madman scenario, a madman, of course, total and absolute. The man has gone totally crazy. I'm trying, of course, to get David Rudder's madman rant at this point in time. Yes, indeed. Let me see why why it's not coming up as far as audio is concerned. Let me see. No, there is nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Okay, so let's open the volume mixer and see what is happening there. Yes, indeed. So no matter how prepared you are, certainly, of course, these things happen, and we must, of course, always adapt and adjust. So let's see if the madman rant. Oh yes, right, good. Yes, indeed. Let's start from the beginning. Yes, indeed. If they do the crime, they're going to damn well pay. But somebody promising a human rights, while somebody threatening to put out their lights. The Montreal full with little Trinidad boys. A bullet start to whine and put an end to the joy. Now they're lying call for their mama to mourn. The Nike gone, the gold teeth gone. You see, they want their pocket full with blue silk. They want the statue drinking full cream milk. The little red silk is not their true friend. The blue one have two extra knots on the end. So a tag on the toe is now they take it to hell. But look where we reach, well, I hear a madman born. As he spread out on the wall, he said, this is it, I've been hit. No time to give up, brother, no time to quit. Was the chant of a madman. Yes, indeed, people. Yes, people, of course, Rowley has total, and of course, the exemplification of that was most recent. Well, of course, he went here, there, and everywhere. He was extremely ubiquitous, but of course, singing loud and saying nothing, like, of course, an empty vessel making plenty noise, but going zero where, with, of course, no load of significance. That is what transpired, of course, last night, as he attempted, of course, to once again hoodwink the population, who have, of course, been in a state for a very long time now, to the point where it is now
ad nauseum. It is totally unflattering. It is an exercise in futility, an expression of constant regurgitation like a recurring decimal, and the man will not stop. A classic exemplification of what? Of a madman. A man who does the same thing over and over is said to be a madman. But I also say that he has to be a damn fool, a stupidity. So Rowley is in a state of stupor. And we saw it, of course, last night, or at his so-called, once again, his so-called what? His so-called conversation with the Prime Minister. That is the default position that he takes when he knows that his political stocks are out and gone. His political stocks are out and gone, and therefore he will have come up with these, of course, superficial, superfluous, so-called conversations. Superficial and superfluous. Yes. Yes, let's hear him. Let's hear him. The man is totally gone. So apart from, of course, our prediction that he would be sweating like Manning did, as we saw, of course, on the last occasion during the course of the local government elections, when he tried, of course, to convince the population to no avail. They did not move. In fact, they gravitated more to the UNC and, of course, its partner, the NTA, by getting over 30,000 more votes than that of the PNM in the local government elections. And, of course, you have to context that against the background that he was forced to call the elections, and therefore a rank and unadulterated, even though he will not want to, of course, to admit, but a rank and unadulterated dictator. Let me say tonight, sorry about that, we do not have the benefit of the number tonight. We have had some technical problems, and of course, moving across, we will explain when we, of course, return to normalcy. But tonight, it will be a monologue, but of course sharing it with madman Rowley. Not that I am mad, because I know that some may say that it is contagious. Having regard to the performance of the present government and their officials, but I want to assure you that Lennox Smith is no madman, extremely rational, and of course extremely sane, and will, of course, demonstrate to you the madman that Rowley has been exhibiting. It is unfamiliar to me, but of course it's a confirmation to you. You see, he went all over the place. He went all over the place. And then, of course, claiming that somehow, and that is what is most dangerous with fellas like these. He then claimed that he has saved Trinidad and Tobago. The common denominator, they want to call it, in the context of Rowley, you can't say golden, you have to say the devilish thread, the common devilish thread that runs through Rowley's presentation. And as I said, he defaults to that when he realizes that nobody comes to his meetings. So he was rudely awakened to that reality in St. James during the course of the local government elections, when, of course, his own supporters tell him that he just lied in a public open space, and then, of course, opted for a closed space. 100 turned up. That has been, of course, the case with this government. We have seen it, of course, when they had their so-called elections exercise at the grandstand Savannah. Yes, Queen's Park Savannah. So we know. And when they were at, of course, Napa, when, of course, Napa could hold a maximum of about 2,000 persons. And of course, the General Secretary of the party, a scamp in his own right, are talking about, of course, Cummins, who doesn't know if he's going or coming, said that it was about 5,000. A place that could only hold 2,000, about 5, if so much. That is the level of madness that is taking place and attempting, of course, to hoodwink and gaslight. And let me use the word bullshit the population. Some prefer to say BS. On this live, of course, I could say bullshit the population. That is what they are about. And last night was no different in terms of the logistics and the coordination and the organization. But Rowley was at center stage. And as I said, he went all over the world. But at the end of the day, he settled, of course, by trying to tell us that he is some kind of Mosaic Messiah. You want to say he's a Moses and a Jesus. That is what he tried to tell us last night. The man has gone mad. He has gone mad. He told us that he saved us from the IMF, you know. He went on to tell us that his attempt, of course, to be the sole advocate or marketing agent for Trinidad and Tobago resulted, of course, in better negotiation of gas prices. I don't know how we come up with that one. And that, of course, having shares in train 2 and 3, which we never had before, we now have. And somehow that's a big achievement. A huge achievement. And of course, putting into the mix the wastage, the upstreamers, BP, and others told him that they will not provide gas to train 1. Yet still he went on his own with only about 10% if so much, and take our money and invest in the maintenance of that particular facility, and then tell us that somehow, because of that, he was able, of course, to get a space, a percentage of the ownership of train 2 and 3, which we didn't have before. Oh, what a despicable, corrupt, nasty, deceptive, and evil liar. The man has no limit to his, of course, prevarications and his mendacious proclivity. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. If I went and invest in the refurbishing of, let's say, a car engine, with the hope that the owner of the car, not my car, but I refurbish it. I may be a partial owner, but a partial owner in the sense that I just have about 5% or 10% interest in the vehicle. But I go higher engine, the vehicle, everything. Hoping that somehow that I will get a stake in my partner's other interests, and maybe other vehicles that I did not have an interest in before. Well, apply your common sense. Apply your common sense, people. You see, because there's a big distinction between Rowley's investment and the hypothetical scenario that I just gave you. Because I know you are assuming that the vehicle that I went ahead and refurbished at no cost to the other partner who owns 90% of the vehicle, that somehow doing that I will get an interest in maybe the 10 or dozen other vehicles that my partner owns. But that could only happen in one scenario and one scenario only. And that is in the refurbishment. In the refurbishment of that vehicle that I indicated hypothetically adds value is functional and therefore will earn its keep after the refurbishing that I would have done. So let's take, for example, if it was a rental business and the vehicle that was done that I refurbished and put into, of course, back into circulation, and therefore it's earning money, then certainly the idea of negotiating a better deal with my partner who owns maybe wholly and solely a dozen more vehicles, that is possible. But Rowley, in Rowley's situation, and let us take, of course, the vehicle refurbishing. Suppose the vehicle was unwanted. Nobody wanted it. Your partner didn't want it. It cannot add to the profits of the organization. And then in such circumstance as Rowley and this government has done to us and utilizing our money, you are a backside of enormous proportion. The vehicle is not functional, even though you refurbish it because they have written it off. But you gone and you refurbish it. You did it at your own risk, your own cost, and your own peril, at your own peril. That is what that is. You know what Rowley come and tell we? That because he invests our $200 million in Train 1, that the other major partners, we only have about 10%, if so much, in that. But it can't function because the upstreamers will not give it gas in order to produce the items that it will normally produce, like liquefied natural gas. Will not. So how does that mean, by some magic, by some illogical, nincompoopish, asinine, a destructive, irrational disposition, Rowley comes and tells us that, listen, if a vehicle that needs an engine and he of that particular vehicle, the fellow with the 90% write it off, he bring it back for possible roadworthiness. But the partner says, no, don't bring that back. I am in disagreement. Rowley is saying that by that scenario, a person will now get, or put another way, the owner, the majority owner, the man who has additional assets, will give him a place and, of course, invite him to be a shareholder. What an ass. Specimen of inhumanity. And let me say, of course, once again, we do not have the use of the calls tonight. Sorry about that. So I have to go solo. But I trust that I'm doing a good job in that regard. And the nature of the discussion, I think, allows such a scenario to take place. That's what Rowley is telling us. So let us superimpose, let us lift this hypothetical situation and put it into the reality of what Rowley and they tell us that they were engaged in, and somehow they got a seat on the ownership table in Train 2 and 3, and justifying the deployment or the use or the which, of course, taxpayers could hardly afford, having regard, of course, to all of the high prices, the shortages, and of course, a delay in payments for simple income earners such as those in CPEP and URP, and, of course, other governmental menial jobs. Rowley is telling us that haven't spent, of course, he told it last night, that haven't spent $200 million on that, train one. The main shareholders, BP and Shell and so on, and the Chinese firm, he's telling us that for them spending that $200 million on a plant that will never function, that will never produce anything, that they got the Shell, BP, and the other partners to agree to give Trinidad and Tobago a 2 or 3% stake in, of course, in train 4. I mean, the man has to be mad and telling logical, common sense, and what I consider to be intelligent people, and looking for round of applause, and some of them gave him round of applause. How is that possible? You are getting rewarded for doing stupidness, for wasting your money. That's your business. And I'm sure BP and, of course, Shell are seeing not Rowley and they as backsides, but they're wondering why it is that the population is not up in arms against these miscreants, these criminals, these misbehaviors in public office, these people who are totally corrupt, these people who are engaged in mismanagement, and, of course, the inability to address the issues of whether it is in the energy industry, the transportation industry, the entertainment industry, the food and beverage industry, and we can go on and on. Of course, the socio-economic and psycho-cultural needs of the population. No way. So I trust that you would now be disabused of any notion, because Rowley cannot clear of that 200 million and give us all of the details, the steps as to how BP and Shell agreed to give Trinidad and Tobago a stake in train 2 and train 3 because they invested 200 million in a train that effectively has been left to fallow or mothballed. Mothballed, like, of course, the petroleum oil refinery. Rowley is telling us, in other words, that somehow, if they go and invest money into petroleum oil refinery now, and even though it has not turned out 1 barrel of oil after being mothballed for so long, some investor will come and praise them and say, well done, and invest in that which they have created as a monumental failure because of the length of time that the oil refinery was in mothballed state. Mothballed state. That's what he's trying to tell us. It may sound illogical, and you had to be a backside and a half, or 1.5, if you want to call it that, or 2.5, to accept this madman logic. And he says that Ablam, he said that with a straight face, and unmitigated bold-facedness. The man is a con man. The man is an evil man. The man is a dangerous man. And therefore must be jettisoned. Jettisoned out of our faces and our institutions. That's what has to happen. Sorry about that. Of course, it's a bit hot in here, so I'm sweating a bit. I don't know if someone will be sympathetic and give me some kind of, should I say, perspiration easing fabric in order, of course, to do the necessary. But that being as it may, the fact of the matter is that is nonsense. And he did that again. And what is much more very disconcerting, disheartening, and to demonstrate the level of disrespect this man has, and his criminal tendency, and his conmanism, and his dishonesty. The man went back to talk about, of course, that when he came into office in 2015, gas prices dropped. And somehow he went abroad, justifying, of course, his more than Kamala Prasad because, you know, he was concerned when he was in opposition. Now he probably has tripled the amount of foreign trips that Kamala made. This is why they had to be up and down between the United States, of course, even the Middle East and Guyana recently, and Venezuela, etc. Of course, the dragon gas notwithstanding, and so on and so forth. He comes up with these concocted, manifestly unmitigated untruth, or untruths, I should say, plural. Yes, indeed. He comes up with that. You forgive me, I have to deal with something here. Let me see. They gave me a connection that I don't have. I can't find. To, of course, they gave me a fan, so I'm trying to attach it. Let me see. Oh, wait. No. Oh, boy. What's happening here? Afraid to touch anything here because we may happen here. I'm hoping I've not interfered with anything. But with this wrap. Oh boy. Let me see. Oh boy. All right, let's see. All right. Let me see if the fan would work. Ah, yes, I'm feeling much better now. Wow. And I don't even have a kerchief or a rag with me, so you would forgive me. All right, so let's get on with the business anyway, hand and so on, because we have to get along. But I'm getting some breeze now. PNM must definitely go, and nothing will be wrong. Nothing will be wrong at this stage. In terms of aeration, in terms, of course, of trying to evaporate the sweat or the perspiration. Once again, of course, I said that we do not have the benefit of the WhatsApp tonight because of the moving. So when we get across there, I'm still beaming from the original tonight. I assure you, Monday morning, we will be, and Monday night, we will be, of course, over there. I am determined. Last, of course, as somebody told me today, but at the end of the day, there's a greater one who disrupts and have a plan of his own. And we cannot question that. So I am not questioning anything. I'm just saying I'm only human. I predicted, I estimated, but things did not work out. And let me ask one time of the persons who made commitment to those hardware and so on. We'll be calling on you from tomorrow. Well, we'll continue to call on you tomorrow and over the weekend to get, of course, those plyboard or those partitions that are required for the classrooms and businesses and so on, and other material that in order, of course, to make it much more hospitable. Right? So look out for that. That being as it may, and if those of you who still can make contributions, because of course we have those young men working very hard, motivation to expedite the entire exercise was when, of course, this brutal murder occurred on the corner of Charlotte and Duke Streets, Duke Street. And of course, we are around the corner and down the street on George Street. But of course, too close for comfort, and of course requires that we move into action with immediacy and with alacrity and with a speed. Well, before it was Hines, today it was, of course, it was Scotland. He was on George Street today, trying, of course, to hoodwink and deceive those young people. Of course, without or pretending that Lennox Smith is not around. Obviously, he doesn't want, they don't want, of course, to appear to be ruffled. They don't want to appear to be in a state of a discombobulation, confusion. They don't want to appear to be annoyed. They don't want to be projecting that they are fearful that the corridor transformation, the ground report, etc., is on the scene. And let me tell you something. Don't be bothered. Don't be Don't be dismayed. Don't be dejected if we do not get the permission to use Woodford Square on the 18th. Don't be. I say to you, don't be. We have an even more potent plan. More superior because plan A and therefore the 18th of this month demonstrate the trepidation, the fear, and the cowardice and the underbelly of this government. A bunch of cowards, as we have always said. As of course, those who at one time were the arch and maybe sub-arch nemesis of the UNC and the Kamala Persad-Bissessar, all of them are now saying humbly, meekly, mildly, and with a straight face, apologizing to Kamala Persad-Bissessar and saying that they must now be in a state of repentance, in purgatory, for what they had said about Kamala Persad-Bissessar. But what is important is that all are now gravitating, whether it be Kojo, whether it be Philip Alexander and Pep, whether it be, of course, silently, not overtly, but of course, playing mannish, are talking about, of course, MSJ leader, whether it is, of course, Jack Warner, and so, of course, the Supreme and the extremely intelligent Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Her eruditic disposition is unquestionable. Her tenacity for humility and for absorbing insults by the most a set of ignoramus that you could put your mind to and focus and turning out, of course, to be spitting in the sky and falling in their faces collectively and individually. Don't be bothered. We on the corridor transformation, on the ground report, on, of course, the Anna Roberts program, the Victor Roberts, etc., who were constant as the Northern Star. We were immutable like a scent, can't change. And we were always on the political button in terms of the goings on and the shenanigans and the outcomes that we have predicted, and includes, of course, the outcome of the Tobago last elections, as well as, of course, that of the evils that Rowley and his government would have conducted, manufactured, and choreographed in order, of course, to make themselves somehow ultimately project Rowley as the devil incarnated, manifested. Yes, indeed. You cannot tell me that when you bear false witness against Anand Ramlogan and Ramdeen and concocted a story and provided a witness that from the surface of it would appear to be credible, and they exploited that by corrupting that so-called credible witness. I'm talking about Vincent Nelson. Corrupted and promised him a pardon if he would only make the sacrifice of his career. And we know that he did so, and maybe those of us who might have been in that situation would have done the same. If it is that you have, of course, a chronic and life-threatening disease in that, and unlike the treatment of Maxi Coffee, he was made to sweat, to grovel, to compromise his integrity to save his life, because Rowley and them had $10 million for him, which he went to court, and the court approved, just as they did with respect, of course, to those plethora of medium and small companies that was adjudicated upon as being valid and should be given their monies under, of course, the Education Facilities Company. And instead, of course, paying the people and being, of course, a good, expected, of course, a salubrious, and a government of all the people and for the people, Rowley and they decided instead to close down, to file for a termination of the Education Facilities Company, so that those persons who were adjudicated as having valid contracts and valid payments were due to them. They have to catch the ant nenen and all of the implications, such as the possibility of harm to their lives and limbs, because family members, workers would have been owed and expected to be paid, having worked hard and having invested. And Rowley and they decided instead to wind up a company that was acting on behalf of the Ministry of Education and therefore the government, and got its income, decided, of course, to wind up and throw these people to the wolves. To the wolves, people. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing I'm talking about. When Rowley exploited the head and made the man sign an indemnity agreement, whereas a lawyer, the very man who gave heathenness who gave Rowley and them a one paragraph statement, a one paragraph expert assessment as to the Malcolm Jones matter. And I say so, and I take note of the one paragraph scenario simply because that is not done in that way, as was expressed by the Privy Council when they were making an adjudication on the matter of course, disclosure through the Freedom of Information Act on matters of the Malcolm Jones case, and why it is that Rowley and they withdraw that matter from the court when Kamala and they put it in court to get some kind of compensation. Rowley and them withdraw it. Are you telling me that Rowley and them has any right to be in government right now? You have to be mad too. And he has to be extremely, not just paranoia, not just mentally sick, not just in cognitive, cerebral, and intellectual decline, but a man who has no compassion, no compunction, and no concern with, of course, the fact that his party and any political organization is in government to manage the affairs of the country equitably, and of course doing good to all, and not victimizing anybody. But Rowley has converted that to the most pernicious, the most wicked, the most dangerous. And of course, he sees a government as an opportunity to take advantage of the poor and to victimize those who dare to what? To oppose him. Well, I say to you, Rowley, you're a blasted rapist and a pedophile. Understand that? You are a rapist and a pedophile. You are damn no good. You are wicked. You are nasty. You are dangerous. And when, of course, those boom flies and those nanny flies are like Heinz, and of course, Scotland now coming around George Street and Nelson Street, we know what you are about. And we know that you will, of course, engage in nefarious criminal conduct against who you believe are a threat to your dominance and your hoodwinking, and seeing, of course, Eastport to Spain and the entire corridor as your vote bank, and believe that you can manipulate in perpetuity. Well, I say to you, the time has come and your days are numbered. The time has come and your days are numbered, Rowley. I will not be surprised when the next election bell rings and, of course, the outcome of the election declares for the first defeat of the PNM on the East-West Corridor is Diego Martin West. I will not be surprised. And mark my words, as we said about the THA elections, when all the pollsters, when all the professionals, the so-called intellect, and the sophists in, of course, monitoring elections, all of them said it was a slim victory for the PNM. Today, there are those who are saying the same thing, a slim victory. That PNM and Rowley cannot be, of course, unseated or defeated. I say to you, hogwash. I say to you, you have to be living like an ostrich, burying your head in the sand. I think you should get asphyxiated if you bury your damn head in the sand and leave your whole torso or your whole rest of the body outside. You should be asphyxiated. And since asphyxiation begins with an A, then I could also say that you are a dumbass. Yes, you are a dumbass. Wait, you have to tell me who defeated the PNM in 1986 so that they were relegated and ought to have been. Now that Now that would have been relegated to the dustbin of political history since 1986 with the 33 overwhelming defeat. But they came back, of course, in 91 with their criminalistic disposition, and people more desperate, of course, to gain power. Their greed knows no limit. And that was, of course, under Manning. And then you have a more dangerous character. He is so dangerous that he fight Manning and all in order to be where he is. And he deployed, of course, necromancy. As he said, of course, he went to Likoto. Now the Likoto Jumbi has, of course, possessed him and his entire cabinet. And, of course, we know that where that is leading. And let me predict once again that blue lights and silver bracelet is the ultimate destiny for Rowley and his bunch of course, criminals, corrupt, and, of course, nepotistic and cronyistic cabinet, and what I consider to be decrepit ministers, both male and female. Decrepit. Decrepit. They seem to have a bout of poliomyelitis. They are all cracked up and, of course, disfigured in more ways than one. I am not, of course, decrying those who may be afflicted, but I'm just using the analogy to demonstrate the level of evil and disrespect and, of course, incompetence, impotence, and at the same time, total indolence, because we have Rowley saying after he would have done all of those flights in and out of Trinidad and Tobago to talk about a holiday. Holiday my backside. Holiday my backside. And people are upset, especially when he tried, of course, to deflect attention by, of course, saying he considering or laying in the parliament the salary review commission's increase in salary for he in the office of Prime Minister today. People are upset. And he tried, of course, to shift that narrative away from what? Away from the oil spill. Yes, we must take the oil spill on board as well. But the fact of the matter is that yesterday, Rowley was in a state of a madman rant. Madman rant. And let's hear it in song. Let's hear it in song, man. Let's hear it in song. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The chant of a madman. What is that chant? Let us go straight, of course, to that chant. It was only yesterday when the madman chanter, Keith Christopher Rowley,
as to where the rules are published all over the country. We are prioritizing the sizes, the small roads, the big roads, and there's an ongoing program. Before it was said, when you see road beginning election coming, well, they have no election this year, and we paving more roads this year so far than we paved before. Because now, come to a point where we can direct more resources, more effort to that program of our deteriorations, order and what we are doing. But when I come back to crime, we in the parliament try to get agreement. When we were in opposition, we supported a lot of efforts by the parliament to change laws and introduce laws and so on to try to give the police and other state agencies the ability to have the advantage over the criminal element. Unfortunately, the other side don't see things that way. They see being in a situation in the country where crime is rampant, and it appears as though we don't have a solution that works well for their election campaign.
right of a madman.
So, initially, we tried to encourage them to agree. Even things that they brought to the parliament, they would not support. Because to support it is to make the government look good. There are people in this country who actually take that position. And in this era, where the criminals are all over the place, because there was a time when violent crime and criminality and murder was Laventil. Crime as a business has now permeated the whole country, so it's all over the country. From Cedros to Carnage, from Sandy Grande to Scarborough. There are young people in particular who are choosing crime as a way of life. And if you don't believe that, I'm only expressing my view. There are people in this country who are choosing criminal conduct as a way of life. And they have to be brought to heel by the state security agencies. But this is 2023. While we are trying to control that, there are other people who spend their time arguing in granting bail for murder. Fact. So now, whether you like it or not, murderers can get bail. I want to say something to this country. The English laws that we inherited, that we're trying to be the best at interpreting, are for the English society. Once we decide it is for our society, we better understand that there are going to be some serious shortcomings. So now, we are concerned
more concerned about those who have been convicted in the jail. But I don't see any concern for the witnesses who got them in the jail, who got them convicted, who now have to live on the same street with the murderer who has got bail and who knows who got them there. I'm just telling you as Prime Minister that there are people who are in mortal fear now and approaching the Prime Minister. What can the Prime Minister do? Mortal fear of living where they live now, because the people that they managed to get behind bars, convicted for murder, there was a time when they would have been executed and be history. Now they're back on the street facing them. That is the reality of 2023. Same thing with bail, the revolving door. And of course, if witnesses are put in that situation, who wants to be a witness in this country, where if you are a witness and you manage to get somebody convicted for murder, when they come out, as they will, because nowadays they're out. So some of us want to get the criminals in. That's our effort. There are others who want to get them out. That's their effort. But we pass on from that. I want to draw your attention to the work that was done by this government in 2016, 2017, 2018. We enjoy the quality of life that we have based largely, not only, but largely on our earnings, starting with oil, and then later with gas, and then now still with gas and a little bit of oil. The earnings from the hydrocarbon sector is what pays the public debt, because we've been borrowing money for decades. We owe a lot of money every month, every week. We have to pay the various debts. And we also have to pay public servants.
People, tell me, rationalize this. And your common sense will tell you that since the inauguration, since the genesis of not just Trinidad and Tobago as an independent sovereign country, but even those that are not independent as yet and are not therefore sovereign, always as the government was always elected and claimed that they can manage the affairs of the country, and that on that basis the population reposed their trust and they therefore voted one man, one vote in most instances. Why would Rowley regurgitate something that is obligatory of his government and any government, both in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, in the past, in the recent past, in the distant past, and into the future? Why? He can only say that hogwash because he believes that we are fools. If you're a government, whether you are now newly independent or whether you were part of the colonial system, even the colonial system, you had an administrative agenda, a mechanism, a strata that you had to find money for. How is the government will run? Probably getting on as though since he came into office in 2015, that has since been so, and it is a difficult challenge, a difficult task. But let me tell you something. Let us get serious here. Rowley met $5 billion in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Rowley met over $12 billion in the reserves of the country. Rowley met in excess liquidity over $5 billion, $3 billion of which was estimated, if they wanted to be utilized by the business sector by way of borrowings and so on, private banks. What the hell is he talking about? No, that is to generate sympathy for him. And somehow his task is so monumental as opposed to any government, any part of the world, in the Caribbean, etc. This man is a total and absolute buffoon. And he has labeling it as what the Prime Minister's conversation and talking that level of hogwash. A total set of tautology, a total set of rhetoric, a total set of regurgitated, hackneyed material. This man needs to be locked up and locked away. What you tell him about? How dare you insult our intelligence by telling us that the government has to pay civil servants and have to, of course, engage in the procurement of services and of course, material for which they must pay? That is common sense. Everybody knows that. But let me tell you what he did not say and will not say. Apart from the money that he met and how much remain now, he didn't tell us that, of course, he dipped into the Heritage and Civilization Fund. He didn't say how much money remained. The same 6 billion. I say it is closer to 4 billion. He didn't say that, of course, he met a debt to GDP ratio of about 44%. He didn't saying that. And he's saying today it is almost 100%. They borrow more money than anybody else. And then had the audacity in that same, of course, exercise in futility, of course, and of course, attempt to hoodwink. Attempt is the operating word, to hoodwink people. Attempt to hoodwink. Attempt. Waste of time. Nobody is convinced. And has the temerity to tell us that he saved us from going to the IMF. And he said it in such a way the ambiguity of which is such that you could say that he and his administration would take us to the IMF, or that somehow somebody else administration, if they were in his stead, we would have gone to the IMF. That is the level of hogwash and diatribe that this man spews. Imagine he's making a case that he's saving us from going to the IMF. Just as how he said he saved us with respect to COVID, but we had over 5,000 deaths and a state of emergency with, of course, a parallel health system that costs more than all of the Caribbean countries put together. Let's imagine that. And literally encourage people to die when he tell them come to Tobago for Easter because he want to promote a new boat that he got under questionable circumstances from of course, Australia, one of which, of course, was refurbished in Vietnam. And in a modern scenario, no seat can recline, no seat. Rowley, how much you really pay for them boat? With loaded with fixed seats. And it demonstrates, if you could take that for the kind of money that you say over $1 billion it costs, how much more would it have taken to make passengers between Tobago and Trinidad and vice versa comfortable by giving them reclining seats? How come? How much more? But it demonstrates how evil this man is. Because he must have seen those seats. People must have gone and inspect. A question must have been asked. How much more, at minimum, will it cost to give our passengers, fellow citizens, reclining seats on those boats? The man is evil personified and sits there with his ugly, a face only a mother would love. Rowley, hold your mother. Look. Rowley, hold your mother. Look. The man is wicked. He is evil, dangerous, and with a straight face. You bring a boat like that, boasting and tell people go to Tobago. But he's the only man in the world that get COVID about 3 to 4 times. Only man in the world. Only man in the world that defeat death all that time. Or was it part of his agenda to deceive the theatrics and histrionics? I wonder. I wonder. You don't put anything beyond this man. This man fake an assassination, you know. He said somebody was going to assassinate him. He fake a leadership on the basis of complexion of skin. He says somebody say he too black to be head of the PNM, as if Manning was white. And Eric Williams worse. Maybe he was talking about maybe Chambers. But by any stretch of imagination, Chambers cannot be characterized or deemed a white man. So what is he saying? Looking for sympathy, as was the case yesterday in that nonsense of a so-called prime ministerial meet, and using our money for that. It's the only man I see use a so-called prime ministerial conversation in the midst of an election. In this case, of course, in the last year's elections in August, and put on PNM clothes, black PNM clothes, red, and sit down on a chair like that. And everybody else in the audience is red in the midst of an election, only because his own people told him in St. James a couple of days before that he does lie too damn bad. And that is a reality. He can't get away from that. He can't change his skin. He could try how much he want. He could try how much he want. The saying goes, Michael Jackson tried that and failed. The man is a hater of his own kind and has manufactured and created a 1% that could do no wrong in this country. Right? They rape the treasury, rape our resources, physical and material and financial. And he has the audacity to talk about what? He saved us from going to the IMF. That's what the man trying to say. Well, let me tell you something. The IMF would have rejected any kind of application, any government, including Rowley Government, for structural and or financial support or buttressing, simply because we are better than most. Very few countries in the world, far less in the Caribbean, have or had the kind of resources that Trinidad and Tobago had. In fact, ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America, just about 5 years ago, identified some 6 Caribbean countries advocating, of course, debt forgiveness. Obviously, Trinidad and Tobago wasn't one. But it included, of course, Grenada, St. Vincent, Barbados, Jamaica. And immediately when, of course, Motley came into office, she had to, within a month, she had to get into the IMF to get structural and, of course, a financial support for restructuring of the economy, and at the same time buttressing. And it has implication, of course, for your currency. It has implication for your credibility on the international scene. It has implication for your credit worthiness and how you are going to, if at all, you're going to borrow money, etc. Well, we have scuttled all of that. Our credit rating is not as good as it ought to have been if there was prudent management. If I am a lender, a creditor country, and Trinidad and Tobago comes to me and I look at Trinidad and Tobago's profile, and I see that the government dip into our sovereign savings, the Heritage and Civilization Fund, once, twice, 3 times, I must say no. If I was minded that that country had the potential to pay, and with the interest that I would have attached. But because they have good credit rating and having regard to the abundance of resources at their disposal, quite apart from a suggestive, healthy economic multiple activities, including other macroeconomic issues such as inflation. Apart from the reserves, healthy, you're talking about over 12 months of reserve. I mean, that is beyond the international minimum standard. 12 months. Rowley and then reduce it to half of that. And if my estimate of 4 billion is correct, then it means therefore they have reduced that, of course, to just about 4 months of import. 4 months of import, closer to the IMF than ever before. And he mentioned one thing about it. That is how disrespectful and how dangerous this man. However, he went there to make the case for, of course, the Revenue Authority and for the implementation of property tax. And he made heavy weather about it. That's what he went there for. Totally ignoring the fact that he came up against Manning in 2009 and thereabout, when it was first introduced. He mentioned it there, and he called Imbert, of course, to give the chronology or the history of course, both the property tax and the data of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority scenario or saga. Yes, indeed. That's what he did. That's what that was all about. Just as how local government was all about the promotion of property tax. But blames, of course, the opposition, who, of course, is a stickler for law and order, for doing things right. And the level of deception must not be as prevalent and as commonplace as that of Rowley. Total and absolute criminals, no different to those fellas who Hines and them went to see recently. Are talking about Scotland, are talking about Hines, as of course the ground report and of course the corridor transformation now descends and set up their office. A tremendous blow to their dominance in that area. And it will mushroom. Mark my words, it will mushroom, and the news will be beamed across the corridor. Rowley, your ass is grass. You and your government and your P&M must now be relegated to the dustbin of political history, having regard to your evil and your wickedness and your misbehavior and your criminal conduct and your larceny of the treasury and the raping of our sovereign financial resources. You just have to watch at Balize House and understand the reality of Trinidad and Tobago today. All of them, the entire cabinet are guilty. And they have conspired to deprive those depraved, malignant, and stinking evil people. Stinking evil people. And I am being very generous with my verbal adjectives to describe them. Let's hear Rowley as he tried, of course, to hoodwink and gaslight the people once again.
Who have been getting an increased salary over the decades. You move from here to there. My first salary was $169 a month. Gazetted public servant. My first salary was $169. That same salary now pays probably $12,000 or $13,000. That same office. So we have debt. Roll over debt, keep going with that. When we came into office, we met a situation that I want this country to understand.
Yeah, Rowley.
Gas production was going down because of the age and extraction levels in our fields. Oil production had gone down. And the contracts for selling, let's talk about gas. The contracts for selling gas were hinged against.
You see, the Lord has a way. Who he wishes to destroy, he first sent them mad and they have to speak the truth. I thought that our levels of income by the main activity for earning foreign exchange in Trinidad and Tobago, I thought it was because of mismanagement and corruption by Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the UNC then. I thought it was that. How come it is about the fact that we have a wasted gas fields? How come now? I'll tell you why it is now changed to that. One, by his deception, not that he didn't know then, by their deception, including Imbert and all of them, they lied on Kamala Persad-Bissessar first and foremost. But now today, after, of course, the Dragon field and the Dragon gas failure, and after the economy is in tatters, especially when they exploited the availability of loans and so on, claiming COVID and the protection of us. They were building, of course, Balize House, or accumulating money for Balize House, and, of course, their friends and family to, of course, look for slush fund in order to, of course, generate election campaign opportunities by way of course, these ill-gotten monies. And therefore, of course, in the 2020 elections is just a classic case of a government gone rogue and gone, of course, not just evil, but so inherently corrupt that today, now it has to face reality. But facing reality means, and by force, they have to level with their utterances, because they are attempting, of course, to go to international lending agencies to get assistance. And because the very frugal opposition, and you and I, who, of course, are talking tonight to the whole world, they know now that they cannot lie, so they are eclectic in terms of the economic realities of Trinidad and Tobago, but, of course, blaming the true circumstance. Because remember, there was leading up to the 2015 elections, they were saying that the country was running on fumes, but it was not so. And even now, Rowley is avoiding talking about the 5 billion that was in the Heritage and Civilization Fund and the over 12 billion that was in reserve, and of course the excess liquidity of 5 billion. He ain't talking that at all, even in that meeting, because he wants you to believe that out of some kind of epiphany, some kind of amorphous, and of course some kind of phantom scenario, Trinidad and Tobago, he met Trinidad and Tobago from where he wants us to take from based on his narrative. Hold your tail. In other words, hold your ass. Rowley, hold your tail. How dare you insult us by taking us there? No, if you want to tell us as to where the economy is, you must start by saying where it was. But no, you ain't taking no blame. But that's conmanship. Conmanship, gaslighting. And we will have none of it. We will have none of it, people. Let us hear him as he continues, of course, with his convoluted and extremely varied and new position on the same matter.
There's something called Henry Hub, which is a place in the United States where gas trading is referenced. A port where LNG is traded against the prices paid there, Henry Hub. So when you look in the newspapers and you see gas price, Henry Hub, it's not. Our contracts were against Henry Hub. And Henry Hub references were in the order of, in recent times, approximately $2 or just more than $2 per unit. But there was a time, 2008, 2009, that period, when that same unit of gas was selling for over $10 US dollars. And on one occasion, it got as high as 13.
I need to pause there. You see, once again, confession is good for the soul, and who the gods wish to destroy, the first send them mad. Gas price, 10, 14, the unit price. Well, Rowley did say, and I did tell you, that he said that the most amount of money that this country ever made was in 2008. Well, hear him confirming that. I thought I should pause there just to make you know that the veracity of what we say on this live and on the ground report is always verifiable. Sometimes by those who reluctantly will like, of course, not to tell us the truth. But when water more than flour, according to the old saying, they have to talk the truth. Who the gods wish to destroy, they first send them mad. So now that it is, no, I think I better let you hear him for yourself. And then, of course, we will evaluate. I think this one is very important, too important to influence it one way or another first.
A lot of money in that period, 2007, 2008. And things started changing in 2009. Today, the reference point at Henry Hub is at our budgeted price is $5. Has any of you thought about that in the last week, in the last month, in the last year? That we budgeted.
I want you to listen carefully, you know, to what this madman is saying, you know. Oil, gas prices, we are now a gas, basically, economy. Of course, he boasts of heritage, making so much money on the production and the sale of petroleum, I mean, not petroleum, but of course, oil by the barrel, because we don't refine again. don't refine again. But by an aside, the production of oil has been reduced, as opposed to Rowley saying that he wanted to create a company that will focus on oil alone. Not that Petrogen wasn't doing that as part of its operation and mandate, but he said that it would be more efficient, and today it is producing less. The man is totally blind. But I want you to pay attention to the fact that he said that the budget for 2024 was based on a $5 US per cubic of gas. 5. And he said that it was $1. And you will hear him say, I'm taking liberty here, you will hear him say it went up to 3. And you have the same bills to pay. And he will ask you where it's coming from, and somehow give them credit when in fact we establish that you know that. You took the job for that. You took the job. Why must we be sympathetic? And why must the public servants, God knows, and increase prices and so on because of mismanagement of the economy overall? Because how come Pandey and them was able, of course, to manage the economy and increase, of course, the people's salaries and, of course, the pension, etc., in the same scenario, but he wants to tell you, he wants to eat his cake and still have it by telling you that happened is what he did and nobody else could have done differently, and then therefore give him another chance to destroy us totally and completely. That's what he's telling us today. Listen to this buffoon. Listen to this backside.
At $5 a unit, Henry Hub is $1.93. And I'm not even mentioning our declining gas production by volume. Has any of you thought, how are we managing to make it? You know how we're managing to make it? That the government that you elected in 2015 saw the danger of this and decided to do something about it in 2016, 2017, and by 2018, we had got rid of it. We set about, led by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy, who was appointed a minister in the office of the Prime Minister. So together, we set about to engage the people who own those contracts. And I made so many trips abroad, ate so many hotel food, lived out of a suitcase so many days in so many cities, London, Amsterdam, Houston, Washington, to convince these people to agree with us, to not use Henry Hub as our reference. But we were able to do a number of things because it had to be done by agreement, because the contracts were in place and we couldn't force anybody to change the contract terms. We did not break a single contract. But we renegotiated, and we're the only country in the world that was able to do that. We renegotiated and got them to agree to different terms and conditions. As a result of that, our gas sales are now not referenced only against Henry Hub, but against the European market and the Asian market. There's a basket and the average price in there, with Henry Hub being $1.93 today. The renegotiated arrangements that we were able to get done, so far, we have got about $17 billion more than we would have got if we had stayed at Henry Hub. And even as the market today is $1.93, By the time you use the new reference arrangements with at least one of the major companies, even though you're seeing 193 as the reference price, the price against which we are extracting our earnings is about $3.53.
It is important that we pause here. This man is hilarious. This man is a monkey donkey. This man is a clown. He starts by saying that the budget in the first place was predicated, was based on a $5 cubic centimeter gas price. He then goes around and says, of course, that they renegotiated and they spread, of course, the basket so they get, in other words, a premium. I'm using his, that's what he is referring to. But I want to stick a pin right there. Because you see, when he went in 2015 to negotiate, as he said, in the boardrooms of in Texas, BP, etc., Shell, you know, he tell me about those companies that was depending on gas as either a fuel or a raw material to produce fertilizer, for example. You know, he tell me that based on the higher price of the gas that they negotiated, these companies come and shut down and close the 11 of them. I say 11 of them, people. He didn't say that. No, that is not to be said, because it is about trying to hoodwink and to focus you on what they did. And I have no problem with that in a courtroom. That is how the defendant as versus, of course, the accused will operate. Well, this is not a courtroom. Rowley cannot be eclectic, nor, of course, pretend that these other factors that has been as a consequence of those same trips that he would have made. It turned out that those persons who were earning foreign exchange said that it was not palatable, it was not reasonable, it was not viable, and therefore it was not economical, and therefore the higher gas price that Rowley went and negotiate, they decided to pack up and go. But more than that, he will never tell you that in 2020 or 21 thereabout, NGC, the National Gas Company, it lost. And they tried to tell us it was temporary. Whether it's temporary, whether it had some kind of amorphous elasticity into the future, the fact of the matter is that it bust. It lost in 2021 or 20 or thereabout. They're telling me about a loss is a loss. And so what Rowley and his imps and them, such as, of course, the former chairman of NGC, ML, who, of course, was given a promotion. They make him an ambassador to Suriname and Guyana, I believe. Because he can't defend the indefensible. How NGC boss? How NGC was at never before. But they have the audacity to say that NGC money was spent on basketball court and, of course, lighting up grounds and so on under the UNC. And, of course, at a time when they had handsome reserves or profits so that they could have done that. Today, NGC is, of course, avoiding any of their corporate social responsibility that has been used by governments in order, of course, to facilitate the upgrading of areas that the government may wish to focus upon or could not have focused because they didn't have or the budget to be allocated, but certainly NGC did, and NGC took up the slack. That has been traditional, and Rowley and they are so dishonest and disrespectful and disingenuous, and of course will tell us that the UNC took the money in order to do that, but they won't tell you how much they took to cause NGC to end up a bus. 2021. No, they were not. Dishonest. But let's get back, of course, to the fundamentals. He said he went, of course, and then, of course, these companies moved out. But hear him today, yesterday, saying that he budgeted the 2024 budget on $5 US. Gas. And of course, he gave you a brief history, nostalgic, that it was a dollar. But of course, they negotiated and they spread, of course, the source of pricing and end up, guess what? $3. $3, and it brought 17 million more or 17 billion more, whatever it is. The fact of the matter is that is no boast. And then end up telling us that it was on the basis of $3. So from 1 to 3, and he boasting. But you pegged your budget at $5. You see that damn ass? Where the other $2 coming from? Are you telling us that of course, that shortfall is better than the shortfall that would have occurred before? Is that what you're telling us? And that we must accept mediocrity? If you're coming with that kind of talk, it has to be complete. I would have expected that you would say that you're getting $6, but no, $6 will be a stretch. It's too obvious for the experts and for the non-esoteric. And therefore, what he did, he kind of averaged it and said we get 3. And he looking for clap. He looking for a round of applause. But he hold the tail and get out of people's face, boy. But we only hold your mouth. Look, I vex you not on Queen Street. No, sorry, Prince Street. You get me vex and all that. I forget Street and just be on a Friday. Hold your mother. Look. Go on from here, boy. Listen to him again.
I don't want to go into any details like that. But I could tell
no
you
details.
that as a result of the renegotiation that we have been able to conclude, we have changed our earnings depending on what's happening in the market from between 20, 30 or as high as 40% more than we would have got. And that is how we have managed to keep Trinidad and Tobago whole. So while some people spend all their time talking about who killed who, and that the government is not doing anything, and that the government is useless, the government was saving this country by doing what we had to do to be in a position earning more from less. That's what we had to do.
So, people dying is permissible. So, you get an increase by $2, traveling up and down the place, playing the ass, but still your budget at $5, and that is an accomplishment. And people mustn't talk about the murders. People mustn't talk about people dying. People mustn't talk a bunch of opportunists well, I should say, murderous bunch of young men and women who, of course, are killing each other and killing people, whether they want to consider it collateral damage or not. Rowley has totally gone mad. That is an accomplishment. And staying clear of the fact that NGC boss, staying clear of the fact that some 11 companies leave the country and gone. And in such circumstance, he was grandstanding to, He was telling them, go if you want, He was telling them that because I have a commodity that everybody wants. Forgetting totally that, of course, Guyana is there. Forgetting even Venezuela is there. Forgetting, of course, the Middle East is still a major supplier of these commodities. And, of course, the whole question of shale gas in the United States, which, of course, for the first time make the United States in a very long time an exporter of the same gas and that he, at one time, knows, and history would show that Trinidad and Tobago was dominant, some 47% of the United States gas needs was being provided by Trinidad. It's no longer the case. They're providing their own gas. Let me tell you this. Let me conclude. Rowley generated that scenario, that theatrics, and that histrionics only to introduce property tax and the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, which of course is before the court to be adjudicated upon because the opposition put the court for that evil. It represents displacement of customs and other inland revenue officials and putting, of course, a P&M oriented people in these positions so that they don't mind, of course, if you can't pay your property tax, they garnish you or take your property. Heartless and brutal. Heartless and brutal, and claiming that they are acting on our behalf. Hold your tail, Rowley is a madman. Get the hell out of office. Get the hell out. You're mad like hell. And therefore, of course, people, I think with that we should come to the end of this mad session by a madman who clearly has lost his way, and attempting, of course, to hoodwink, deceive, and to believe somehow that Trinidad and Tobago will, of course, further commit suicide or have the propensity to commit suicide with an asinine specimen of inhumanity. A fellow who, of course, has wasted protoplasm and the stuff that living things are made of. Waste of time. So people, of course, I want to tell you we have come to the end. We have come to the end of tonight's program. Of course, don't forget tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mike, and myself. Of course, Andy is on the, and those of you who can, please, of course, leave a line for him, as well as, of course, a little commitment financially. Of course, we on this side, we are struggling, of course, with getting materials for the partitions of offices and classrooms and so on. So those hardwares that we have been approached today, for example, one hardware contributed, of course, a toilet set, for example, but we need at least a dozen. So, of course, we have had at least, I think 4 of them so far. So we are still short. 8 and 4, 12, right? Okay. So we're still short of 8. So we need the financial support. We need, of course, the moral support. And I want to thank all of those that come up on short notice, whether they have dug deep into their own resources to share with us. We really appreciate it. And every cent, of course, matters. And every cent will fill the bucket, just as water dripping from a pipe will eventually fill the bucket below. We will get there. But we need your continued support. I want to say that I think firmly we will be in George Street from Monday. I will try my best to see if we can get the phone up and running because we are in between and we have the systems across the systems here still. And we, of course, are asking volunteers to come forward, call Anne-Marie at the number that you see streaming across your system, 336-6594, 336-6594. Call now. You will get me speaking as well. 336-6594. I was just told that the phone was left over on George Street, so after here, I have to go to George Street to get it. But a call nonetheless, so we will have a call back. All right. So the phone is not with her now. If you are minded to call her now, all right. All those international callers, send something by Western Union, $100 or $50. We will accept. I know there's a cost involved, but we will get it immediately. If you send $100, whatever it is, whatever it costs to send out of the 100, we will take the difference. No problem. We are that, of course, in dire need to upgrade that facility to fulfill our mandate for those young people that are clearly in need of our support. We need to do something about those young people and crime and criminality. And of course, as we are concertedly and unanimously recognizing that we have to get rid of Rowley and his bunch of sites. There's nothing more, nothing less. And of course, at the end of the day, and make certain that they face the criminal justice and civil justice system for the evil and for the criminal behavior. Rowley, you blasted rapist and pedophile. Get the hell out of our faces. Yes, indeed. And what he is, he has demonstrated that he is a madman. Total and absolute. A madman in high office. Despicable, dishonorable, wicked and dangerous.
Some renting fun to make other people fall, but somebody promising more police car. Somebody going to take the country far. Somebody putting all the bandits away. He said, if they do the crime, they're going to damn well.
Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Bye-bye.
Somebody threatening to put out their lights. The mortuary full with little Trinidad boys. Have a wine and put an end to the joy. Now they're lying call for their mama to mourn. The Nike gone, the gold teeth gone. You see, they want their pocket full with blue silk. They want the statue drinking full cream milk. The little red silk is not their true friend. The blue one have two extra knots on the end. So a tag on the toes, now they take it to hell. But look where we reach, well, I hear a madman ball. As he spread out on the wall, he said, this is it, I've been hit. No time to give up, brother, no time to quit. Was the chant of a madman in this tale from a strange land. Maybe the chant of the madman is the only salvation. I say the chant of a madman in this tale from a strange land. Maybe the chant somebody promising a human rights, while somebody threatening to put out your lights. The mortuary full with little Trinidad boys. A bullet start to whine and put an end to the joy. Now they lie in call for their mama to mourn. The Nike gone, the gold teeth gone. You see, they want their pocket full with blue silk. They want the statue drinking full cream milk. The little red silk is not their true friend. The blue one have two extra knots on the end. So
the rates are affordable and tailored to meet your needs. Call us now. Just ask for Annie at 336-6594. You will be glad you did. Once again, call Annie for all your advertising and promotion needs at 336-6594 on the corridor transformation. Do you have a budding business, a non-governmental organization, a community event, or a public interest matter to share with the public? Promote and advertise with the Corridor Transformation ad segment. The rates are affordable and tailored to meet your needs. Call us now. Just ask for Annie at 336-6594. You will be glad you did. Do you have a budding business, a non-governmental organization, a community event, or a public interest matter to share with the public? Promote and advertise with the Corridor Transformation ad segment. The rates are affordable and tailored to meet your needs. Call us now. Just ask for Annie at 336-6594. You will be glad you did. Once again, call Annie for all your advertising and promotion needs at 336-6594 on the Corridor Transformation. Do you have a budding business, a non-governmental organization, a community event, or a public interest matter to share with the public? Promote and advertise with the Corridor Transformation ad segment. The rates are affordable and tailored to meet your needs. Call us now. Just ask for Annie at 336-6594. You will be glad you did.